I'll go ahead and recite that myself with all the feedback on the Zoom. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3, roll call, Linda.
Rich Rossway,
Here.
James Randall,
Here.
We can do this.
Where are you,
let me
Linda?
try to pull my microphone. James Randall,
Here.
Kristen Cambenzi, Dr. Brian Cherry,
Here.
James Hewitt,
Here.
Glenn Sarka,
Here.
Michael Kohler,
Here.
Okay. Item number 4 is approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Randall, supported by Dr. Cherry. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Linda?
Rich Rossway,
Yes.
James Randall,
You're muted, Jamie.
Yes.
Dr. Brian Cherry,
Yes.
James Hewitt,
Yes.
Glenn Sarka,
Yes.
Michael Kohler,
Yes.
Okay, moving on then, item number 5, superintendent report, Mr. Saunders.
Well, I'd like to.
I just think, could you please put an update to the NFC North standings at the end of your update, Mr. Saunders? Thank you.
This never quits.
I know it's his last meeting. You notice how he turned it over to me and then immediately interrupted. I couldn't even get one word in.
That's standard routine.
Welcome, Kristen. I'd like to start my superintendent's report. Unfortunately, in this new normal, would have been great if we could have all been together with the public included, but obviously that isn't the case, pending the current orders that we conduct these meetings virtually. I want to start by recognizing our 2 outgoing board members, Mike Kohler and Rich Rossway. Rich served Marquette Area Public Schools from 1999 to 2020, 21 years. He served as a board trustee, as secretary treasurer, and his last 8 years as board president. Rich was educated with 72 CBA credits, 570 education credits, and is a level 5 master diamond. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if you put that on your resume or not, Mr. Rossway, but it is very impressive to say that and to put that into print. So
Cool.
It means that I'm kind of a ninja, pretty much.
And for Mike Kohler, he served from 2011 to 2017, 7 years of service. That included 1 year as secretary treasurer and 5 years as vice president of the board, 36 CBA credits, 165 education credits, and he was a level 2 award of merit as part of his record. Together, both of you, since I've been here, have been part of many MAP successes, including our steady enrollment that we've come to. We were on about a 20-year dip in enrollment, and we've been able to kind of right that ship a little bit. We've had a healthy fund balance with both of you on the board directing the ship. We're both part of the one-to-one initiative to make sure that every student in our district receives a laptop and a device to aid in their education. We're both part of passing the sinking fund millage bringing about $11 million to help MAPS with much needed infrastructure, parking lots, boilers, roofs, and those type of things. Also part of passing of the recent bond brought about another $6.3 million in funding, added much needed elementary classroom space to Superior Hills, Cherry Creek, and Gray Verret. Also was part of building the auxiliary gym here at Marquette Senior High School, and also the maker space within Marquette Senior High School. And both have been part of a longstanding strategic planning process, which keeps the district focused on its own self-improvement. So it's been an honor to work and to serve under both of you. And I thank you both for your distinguished service for Marquette Area Public Schools. Certainly our students and our community have benefited from your service. So thank you both. I hope you get that cough checked, Mr. Rossway.
Yeah, it is quite annoying.
Next,
Hey, be nice.
You can mute yourself, you know.
Next, I would like to give you a quick projects update. First and foremost, the current project that we're working under, our security project. Just so the board's aware, we are several months behind schedule. That security project was supposed to be done at the end of August. Obviously, with COVID and its impact on many businesses, that project has run considerably behind schedule. We have a yet to be determined timeline for completion. That's now getting to the worrisome stage for me. I understand as I've working with the general contractor that obviously there was many issues outside of their control, but at some point we need to have a timeline for completion of this project. To date, there have been a number of ongoing issues with workmanship and some of the mid-completion stages of the project as it stands. And I've communicated with the company that there is a possibility that we begin instituting liquidated damages coming up here at some point. So I've been working closely with GEI to get a scope and understanding of how far behind we are, where we're at with the project, and trying to get a number of the details wrapped up and certainly meet the level of workmanship and craftsmanship that we would expect from an $800,000 project. So we aren't there yet, but we are working to try to get there. And I thought it was important to give the board an update on exactly where we stand there. Additionally, as I help to fill in on the facilities side, we continue to have a number of issues, ongoing maintenance infrastructure issues. A couple of the big ones that we've dealt with most recently, pretty substantial crack in the pool wall. This is a crack that's actually been there. I see Brian Cherry like, oh my gosh, the crack's been there. Not again. The crack has been there for a long time. I chose as a cost-saving measure last spring to kind of shutter that pool. It wasn't being used. We weren't allowed to have students on campus to use the pool. In the process of filling the pool back up, that crack seemed to open up a little bit more than what we're accustomed to seeing. And I have been told by the former high school custodian, Kenny Landcore, that once that pool is filled up, actually the pressure does come off the wall and that crack does close. But it was still leaking a lot more than what we were accustomed to seeing as it was being filled up. So again, reached out to GEI. We contracted with a company out of Iron Mountain. And there were some fillers that they were able to use to actually help repair that crack. That has been fixed. It was about $7,200. It's been retiled, and the pool will now be filled back up again and be ready to go for the reopening of school and sports seasons whenever those happen. So we'll fill it back up over break here, and fingers crossed, no other issues. We've had issues with the high school boilers to the tune of several $1,000s, just ongoing routine maintenance and things that continue to go wrong. With the Bothwell boilers as well, issues with the Vandenboom boilers. And again, these are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 ongoing maintenance issues. We had an issue with some grading at Vandenboom, a little alcove between the library and the south wing of Vandenboom. In recent years, we've seen quite a bit of flooding there, and the vents are filling with water, and it's actually we're getting a lot of water inside the building. So our custodians rented some equipment, and we did quite a bit of grading work behind Vandenboom to try to prevent that from happening. We had to cut out a lot of drywall out of the library and do some carpet work. We had quite a bit of flooding that occurred over there with a big rainstorm this fall. And additionally, one of the bigger expenses is a water tank at Sandy Knoll. When we did put new boilers in at Sandy Knoll about 8-9 years ago, I think it was now, did not replace the water tank at that time, and that water tank now needs to be replaced, and that was about $4,500. So just some ongoing updates on some of our district projects. Information to report on the extended COVID-19 learning plan and what we have to report. Some really good news, I think, as far as school data. Since Thanksgiving break, actually since November 22nd, as we were heading into Thanksgiving break, we've only had one probable case that within Marquette area public schools reported on December 4th. That case did lead to the quarantine of a classroom through the end of this week. But knock on wood, that is the only case that we've had since Thanksgiving break. It was brought to my attention, how come you don't report to the board how many students are being quarantined? I really don't have a way of measuring total number of students being quarantined throughout the district because, well, some are quarantined due to health department, others are quarantined due to reasons that don't come to us. So it's really hard to put a total number on the number of quarantines. We do track how many staff are out due to quarantine, and we do track how many staff are out due to COVID-related issues, meaning perhaps a daycare is closed due to a COVID case, and they're using some of that COVID relief days in order to stay home for childcare issues. Perhaps they're being quarantined because a spouse or somebody else may have COVID, those types of things. So we do track that. We meet daily, Deb, Jenna, and myself. We look at staffing. We look at where we're at and pleased to report since really probably September, we currently have the most manageable numbers. Now, a lot of that is certainly due to 9/12 not being in session. So, we also look at how many substitutes and things like that we need each and every day. So since 9/12 has been moved to remote learning, that is certainly added to the number of subs. But we're at a low as far as the course of the year as far as how many subs we actually need on a daily basis. So overall, those numbers are currently pretty promising to get through the end of this week and into Christmas break, and hopefully that trend continues. I also share with you the most updated numbers from the health department. I got those last Wednesday, I think, from Jerry Masana. And then I just sent an update this afternoon of the numbers that Jerry had shared. His timeline goes all the way back to 11/17. And the one note that we always have to be aware of when I share this data, and I'm not here to interpret the health department's data, just to share that data. But Jerry always wants us to be aware that these are confirmed cases, and it sometimes takes days, even weeks, to go back and know that a confirmed case happened on such and such a date. In other words, you could go in today and be tested. If you don't get the results for 5, 6, 7, 8 days, they'll come back to today's date and add you to today's numbers. So these numbers are continually being updated. But going back to 11/17, we saw 50 cases, Marquette County, 11/18, 37 cases, 11/19, 44, 11/20, 42, 11/21, 20 cases. I don't need to read through all the numbers. 11/23, 65 cases. I see a high of 11/30, 88 cases. So that would be coming off a weekend. Over the past week or so, 12/12, we have 0 cases, 12/11, 4 cases, 12/10, 6 cases, 12/9, 7 cases, 12/8, 34 cases, and 12/7, 25 cases. So that's going back over the last 7 or 8 days. Last piece I need to report, our number of students that we have face-to-face, number of students learning virtually, and our number of hybrid students. We do track the number of students weekly, and we also track the two-way interaction rates. Marquette Senior High School, and again, although the numbers fluctuate a little bit, these are pretty consistent. 566 students currently, well, they're not currently, but are scheduled to be learning face-to-face. 193 students that are scheduled to be online. Obviously, they're all online at the moment. 166 students hybrid. Marquette Alternative High School, 93 face-to-face, 40 online, no hybrid. Bothwell Middle School, 502 face-to-face, 168 online or virtual, and 46 hybrid. Cherry Creek, 290 face-to-face, 79 virtual learners, 18 hybrid learners. Graverette, 236 face-to-face, 43 virtual learners, and 11 hybrid. Sandy Knoll, 272 face-to-face, 91 virtual, and 13 hybrid. And Superior Hills, 272 face-to-face, 63 virtual students, and 12 hybrid as an average. So those are our current numbers as it relates to the learning platforms and students. Again, we have the attendance rates as well. Most of our students with the two-way interactions, we're close to 100%. In most of our buildings, we're not 100%. We're in the 90s for our face-to-face students, and almost 100% in most of our two-way communications that are required for our virtual and hybrid students. I do think we still have a little bit of a reporting issue, is some of our face-to-face students who are absent are getting reported as not having two-way interactions, but we only need to have those twice a week. So we need to continue to work on those reporting systems. But that's our current numbers. as it stands related to COVID. I'd next like to bring in John Young with the 912 out on virtual online learning. I think that's where most of the news and what we're doing to try to tackle online virtual learning and some of the different things that he and his staff are working on. So he has, again, another update for us today. John, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Good evening, everyone. The last time I had an opportunity to talk, it was shortly after we had gone online for remote learning for our face-to-face students. And I thought it might be a good time to come back and give you an update on how that's going, as well as some of the different things that we have in place to make some improvements based off of our previous conversation about the success or lack thereof for some of our online students. And so back on November 18th, state of Michigan declared that all high schools in Michigan would be moving to remote learning. And as a result, we were ready to make that change. And a big reason why we were ready to make that change is because back in April and May of last year, we met as a committee at the high school level and did a considerable amount of research on online learning and what would be required if we were needing to make a change like that, and what some of the best practices were, as well as what were some of the things that saw success in various programs. And so one of the things that we noted from our research back at that point in time was that it is incredibly important to have contact with your teacher as much as possible. And in fact, the research states that the more synchronous learning you were doing, the more successful the online program is. And that's for a number of reasons. One reason is it helps hold accountability for students. It also helps answer questions and resolve problems quicker for students. And then it also allows for that personal connection to exist and to maintain. And that's an incredibly important part for us in working with our students. And so when we set out to put our program in place, we decided to do 4 days of learning using video conferencing. You'll sometimes hear me refer to that as Zoom. I kind of call Zoom the Kleenex of video conferencing, just kind of becomes the universal name. But we are using those video conferencing on an hour-to-hour basis. And so first hour begins at 7:30 in the morning, and there's a Zoom at 7:30 in the morning. The research states very clearly that the more you're able to keep that and maintain that schedule, the better your students will be. And so Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, we have those Zoom sessions being held. We also wanted to ensure that we had balance for our students. And we understand that the research also is clear that you don't want to spend too much time online, and you do want to be able to have time offline for students. And so we worked in Wednesday as being an independent learning day. Now, I want to make sure that we're clear on what independent learning looks like, because it's not a day off by any means. In fact, our students probably do more work on Wednesdays than they do on the other days of the week. That's a day where they're able to kind of roll up the sleeves, get into the projects and assignments that they have, and really focus on those. At the same time, it's a day where our teachers are able to have conversations with those students individually. Where you in a Zoom setting where I've got 25 kids in that Zoom, I can't really have a conversation with one student in particular about their struggles because 24 other students are listening into that conversation. So by having that day on Wednesday, it gives us a day where the students don't have to Zoom, they can focus on their assignments, and the teachers can also make contact with their kids and have those individual conversations that are so necessary for learning to take place. So really the idea is balance, trying to create balance. Not too much online, not too much independent, but just a good combination of both. And one of the things we've also noticed is that although some of our classes, all of our classes are Zooming Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, some classes will take a shorter amount of time because they are more of a project-based class where the teacher then spends time accessible and available to the student while they work on assignments and activities. And that Zoom for that particular class might be a little bit shorter. Other teachers in math, science, for example, may use that full 47 minutes. And so as a result, there's really been a natural balance that's occurred between the amount of time that we're using in Zoom versus the amount of time that we're working independently, which is a good thing for our students. So I'd like to share with you the fact that it's really worked very well over this time. What we found is because of the fact that we have those Zoom sessions available, those students who had been 100% online prior to the closure are now able to join, and academically are doing far better than they were prior. We still have a significant number of students struggling though. And so we're continuing to work on how do we address those students. And if you recall, the last time that we were together, I talked to you about the fact that we had identified a list of students that we're going to target. And so what we've done is we've set up a list of students that our guidance counselors are targeting. And by targeting, I mean working individually with them. So reaching out, making contact on a regular basis, having conversations about their assignments, activities, making sure that they're completed and turning things in, those types of things. So the counselors have gone and approached students that were on their list. We also have a list of students that have been identified and set up for 2 new tutor positions that we've added. So on a regular school year, Marquette Senior High School employs a tutor for grades 10 through 12. And then we also employ a tutor for 9th grade. And so those 2 tutors would work typically after school as part of our after school program. However, because of the fact that we had COVID and dealing with all the restrictions that were in place, we did not put those in place at the start of the year, but have now put those in place as we transition to more of an online focus so that they can reach out and touch base with those students. And so we've hired 2 individuals who, fortunately for us, have a really good background in education. Both have worked in education as a teacher, as a counselor. And so they're the ideal type of person for this job. We've added Tori Sager and Ashley Clemens to our staff. And so those 2 individuals are making contact with a list of students each week where they will be touching base with them on a weekly basis, checking assignments, checking progress, answering questions, working to work through some common questions that they may have about the content, things along those lines, just as a means of supporting those students. And so each of those individuals has a caseload that they're working with right now. Also, our assistant principals have a caseload that they're also working with. And then of course, we have our teachers that continue to work with their students on a daily basis. So as a result, what we've done is we've taken every student in our building and we've assigned an adult to that student, somebody who's able to mentor, look out for, and track progress of that student. So hopefully we can correct, some of those issues that we do see with students being online. Recently, we also had a new opportunity that came to us. That's part of what's called the Graduation Alliance. And this is an organization that their main focus, their purpose is to work with students that are struggling to graduate and find a way to right that ship and get them to graduate on time. Now, this is an active grant that's coming up through the state of Michigan, and Marisa was fortunate enough to be able to have access a day early to that grant. And so as a result, all of the school districts, Marquette Area Public Schools included, has joined on to that within the greater Marisa area. What this means is that we will have access to this company to help support the process of getting kids re-engaged with learning. And so this is not only our students that are close to graduation, our juniors and seniors, but it's also all the way down through the elementary level. And so Graduation Alliance has a program where they make contact with the families and the students to re-engage them, to give them additional supports and things that they need in order to be successful as students. The nice thing about this program is not only is it targeting those kids that are closest to graduation, but by also reaching out to those disengaged students at the elementary and middle school level, you hopefully are correcting some issues that you see only get greater as students reach the high school level, and they're starting to be more independent, and they really need those skills that they haven't developed previously. And so we look forward to the opportunity with Graduation Alliance. That's something that I'll update you on again here in the future. We are in the very early stages of this grant opportunity. In fact, at this point in time, we've got the account set, and we're now going through and identifying students that would be ideal for this program, and then working with that company to get those things up and running. So more information as we move forward. One of the consistent themes, though, that we are noticing, and this is true of all of the school districts in our area and across the state, is that we do see a significant number of struggling students. And if you recall, last time I shared that 51% of our online students had failed 1 or more classes. And so we're trying to find ways where we can ensure that graduation requirements are still being met from an academic standpoint, but that at the same time, they're taking in the difficulties and the issues that our community and our students are facing when it comes to COVID. And so one of the things that we will be working on here as a building, and we'll share more information on in the upcoming month, would be, how do we look at putting other things in place? Things such as possibly altering or changing the graduation requirements for the high school so that we can hopefully address some of these students and we don't find ourselves in a situation where there are too many kids with graduation issues when it comes to that time. One of the things that Mr. Saunders has pointed out is, although COVID may be a year, year and a half, 2 year issue in terms of the initial problem at hand, the reality is for our students, those kids that are missing out on things, even as low back as, elementary level, they're missing out on learning opportunities. And those things are things we're going to have to figure out how to address and how to ensure that we are tackling those problems so they don't become bigger problems and continue on through those students' career as a student. So as we look at things like graduation requirements and the possibility of making changes, it's important to note that the state of Michigan requires that every student get through what's called the Michigan Merit Curriculum Requirements. That's 18 credits of math, science, social studies, English, 2 credits of world language, and a few other items that are required as part of that. So when you think about MAP's graduation requirements, we currently as a district require students to have 25.5 credits. So that gives us about 7.5 credits for us to be able to be creative with and look at what are some ways that we can make some adjustments, not to lower the bar, but to ensure that students are meeting the Michigan Merit Curriculum requirements that are required by the state. And so in the upcoming months, we'll be working as a team to look at that, as well as other items that we can put in place to help support our students that are struggling as a result of the unique circumstances that they're experiencing right now. So those are the updates that I had for you, and I'm certainly welcome to any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Young or Mr. Saunders? So, John, I know with this new bell schedule and that you implemented and maybe you touched on it earlier, are you seeing a little bit more success, a little bit more organizational, working a little bit better since you've implemented that?
We're seeing a couple things. And one of the first things that we're seeing is prior to going to remote learning, our face-to-face attendance at that time, we were 67% the week prior to going face-to-face. We had a significant number of students that were out, either quarantined or just out because of their own concerns and were working from home, even though they were considered to be a face-to-face student. Since we've made the move to online, we're in the mid to upper 80% total for our student population. So that's a significant increase from where we were previously. The other thing that we're seeing is we're seeing students who had been 100% online and struggling greatly are now joining those Zoom meetings, becoming re-engaged in the learning, having conversations with their peers, with their teachers. And really that's made a significant difference. And so we are starting to see some improvements there. I don't want to make it seem like everything is fantastic though, because the reality is by us moving to remote learning, we have seen some students who had been face-to-face and doing very well start to struggle more. And the reason is remote learning is just not the same as face-to-face. You cannot substitute that access to a teacher and the learning that takes place here hands-on and all of those great practices that we're able to do here face-to-face online. And so we do still see a significant number of students struggling. We've actually seen a few students that had been doing well face-to-face that now, because they're in remote learning, are not doing as well. And so again, we're trying to find ways to address those concerns and meet those needs of those students. So some positives, some negatives. I think overall though, the process of ensuring that we're making that contact on a daily basis, following the bell schedule, has really been significant. Because if you can think about those students that went from face-to-face and are now struggling remote, imagine what that would look like if they didn't have the structure and the other things in place that we normally have with our classes and our face-to-face learning that takes place here within the high school.
Any other questions for Mr. Young? Thank you, John. I really appreciate your efforts in addressing this issue.
Thank
I
you.
think Kristen had something.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. I mean,
we don't have too much longer before the semester is over with. Are we going to be doing anything different with exams, knowing that some of our students are struggling?
Yeah, great question. So our building leadership team met a while back and we've made some tweaks with exams. We've not yet communicated that out to families because we're in the process of putting final touches on those things before we communicate that. However, what the plan looks like right now is that rather than having 7 exams, because students, go through a 7-hour day, what we would do is we would scale that back to the core classes. So math, science, social studies, and English would have exams. The other classes would not. And so that would help alleviate some of those issues. Now, even though those 4 core classes would still have an exam, that exam will actually look different than what a typical exam would, mainly because of the fact that we'll try to incorporate the fact that we don't know whether we'll be face-to-face or remote learning during that time. And so that exam needs to be flexible for both of those environments. And then also we know that some students are going to be face-to-face or possibly face-to-face. Some will certainly be online. And so it needs to work in either of those environments. There's easy ways for students to be able to look up answers and do other things when you're online. And so we need to make sure that this truly assesses things. And so we're making some tweaks and some adjustments to that. And then also because of the fact, if you recall, we made a change to the way that we're grading this semester. Rather than being 40% first marking period, 40% second marking period, 20% for the exam, we're doing a cumulative total of those things. As a result, each individual teacher, ensuring that they're working in collaboration with their partner teacher, has the ability to adjust that exam. So that exam could still be 20%. It could be a lower amount depending on what the need is for that particular class or that particular subject. Some subjects don't necessarily need as much of an exam as others do. And so that gives us the flexibility to really tailor those to the teachers and the class's needs while better meeting the needs of the students during that time. The other nice advantage is it allows us to focus more on our instruction because typically we take 3 days minimum of exam review and prep before the exam. And so because we've scaled those exams back, we won't need to do that. And we'll actually be able to have additional days of instruction for our students, which will be really beneficial given all the lost instruction that we've had over the, especially in March and April of last year.
As a follow-up, I'm assuming, we've always done parent-teacher conferences, and I'm guessing we have not been able to hold those, and maybe there's some real challenges with that to do that virtually. Has that been discussed at all?
Yeah, in fact, we did do our parent-teacher conferences earlier this year, and we did those entirely virtual. And each of the levels did slightly different, but at the high school, we actually utilized Google Meets, the phone version, they call it Hangouts, in order to have conference calls with our families and the student. And so the teachers actually had a schedule where families opted in for a conference and scheduled, and then the parent or the teachers would have called the parents from their classroom utilizing the Google Hangouts and had that conference that way. Really went very well, all things considered. We in fact met with almost the same number of parents as we normally do. On average, we're typically around 43% of our parents participate in conferences. We were at about 38% this year. So all things considered, pretty good. That number also was a little bit lower because we actually encouraged families that were performing well. If they didn't need a conference, don't feel like you need to take one of those time slots. Instead, allow a family that maybe needs some more contact to be able to reach out. So although we only hit 38% in terms of the number of families that we spoke to at that point in time, we also reached out to those families of any student that was failing and had those conversations as well. And so we've, as a result, been able to have some really good conversations with families. Still a lot of work that needs to be done though. One issue though that's going to present a problem here coming up for the next set of conferences is the Google Hangout feature that I shared previously. Google has discontinued that. And unfortunately, it's scheduled to be removed prior to conferences. And so we're going to need to look for another alternative for us to be able to do that. The reason being is the district actually has 45 phone lines as a district, and we've got 52 teachers making calls just in my building. So, clearly it's difficult to just use a phone for that. So we'll have to come up with some other solutions.
I guess I have one, I hate to I appreciate your time, John. I don't want to take too much of it, but in these online classes now, and we're on a bell schedule, so are those students participating that entire time in that hour? What does that look like for a teacher? Are all the students online? Is there communication going on?
Yeah. So it's going to vary much like any class would in a face-to-face setting. For example, in a math class, you might spend a considerable amount of the time going through a concept up at the board, answering questions, asking questions, that type of thing. That's typically what it's going to look like on Zoom or Google Meet as well. In another class, it might be more project-based. Myself, I was a business and computers teacher, and so I did a lot of project-based education. And so in those types of classes, it might be a shorter 15-minute, here's a quick lesson, some information you need, what questions do you have? And then the remainder of the time, you're going to go work, and I'm going to be available for you to be able to zoom in and ask questions and those types of things. At the same time, I'll probably meet individually with groups of students. It'll really vary. So in some classes, they're going to use that full 47 minutes. I know science is definitely using that full 47 minutes. In other classes that are more project orientated, it will be less. And so that's that balance that I was talking about before that just sort of naturally takes place.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Young? Thank you, Mr. Saunders.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the update. Next, we have Deb Berry, and she's got a PowerPoint on the budget amendment.
So I will share my screen here. Okay. Trying to get so I don't have echo. All right, we're looking at the budget amendment for the general fund starting out. That includes all of these funds here, our general operations, grants, Kaufman Planetarium, our parochial school services to Father Marquette, a retirement fund, the contingency fund, athletics, and the new GASB 84 special revenue student activity funds. This is a snapshot of what we saw with the adopted budget last June prior to many things we know now. And we were anticipating using quite a bit of our equity to the tune of about 1.5 million. And we had estimated a potential for $650 per pupil proration for that state foundation allowance. So a little bit of fun with numbers. What happened when 19 and 20 got into a fight? 21. Now, these are recycled from last year, but I knew Mike Kohler wasn't here. So trying to get a little relief in the budget because I know this is really dry, although it's my lifeblood and I love it. But in any case, let's move on to the revenue changes for the amendment. What we see here is property tax values have been updated. We had a pretty sizable interest adjustment. So property taxes went down about 430,000. Interest went down about 115,000. The state aid adjustment went up about 2.3 million, and that includes an enrollment drop of about 71 pupils, but we have a super blend formula that changed and a sizable increase in special education costs. Federal grants went up by about 1.2 million, and that is predominantly the COVID grants. And then we recognize some deferrals. So the overall revenue changes were about $2.8 million of change from where we were anticipating being last June. You can see here those numbers, the local revenues, sizable decrease, taxable value interest, some of the student activities, rentals, and then the state. So we're about 2.8 million. And what this looks like here, just by a bar chart, local revenues going down, state going up, federal going up in millions. Expenditure changes for the amendment. At the time that we adopted this budget, we did not have settled contracts, so we have now. We did not know all of the grant allocations, which we now do. We also included snow removal bids, retirement rate changes occurred, and then of course, we always have staffing changes with some retirees. Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. Proposed expenditure amendment by object. Again, what you see here in salaries and benefits are the largest number increases from our previously adopted budget to this amended budget. Those are the settled contracts. You also see some purchase service increases of a higher amount, and that equates to the grants with the professional development expenditures and long-term subs. We've had quite a few out and that we've hired through our contracted sub-service vendor. Supplies are big, and the largest portion of this is in the operations and maintenance. A pallet of 55-gallon drum disinfectant runs $12,000. So that has been the largest chunk of that. So our expenditures have increased 1.362 million from June to now. And again, most of this is in the salaries, benefits, the supplies, and the purchase services for long-term subs. So this is the new summary overview from where we were before to where we are now, a sizable change in our equity, thankfully, because of a lot of those federal grants, which are restricted in use. But now we're looking to use only 117,000 of our equity instead of the 1.5 million. So a much better position to be in for the district. Part 3 with the fun with numbers. What did 0 say to 8? Nice belt. Debt retirement, capital outlay, and sinking fund are the other funds that we'll be asking to amend with this December amendment. Fund 31, which was the old 1994 Superior Hills Cherry Creek debt fund, has been completely paid. So now we just have the 2016 bond debt fund, our general unrestricted capital outlay fund, and then our sinking fund for these special funds that we're looking at. We're not going to do the food service until March. With the debt fund, the biggest change here is the taxable value, which we also saw in the general fund. And then we did have some tax tribunals, which had some fees associated and returns of tax revenues. So that's the biggest change for the debt fund. And so that's just using some of the equity to get to the ending balance. The last fun with numbers, advice of the day: don't get in a fight with 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. The odds will be against you. I do like this snowman here. The last part of the budget amendment is the proposed capital outlay funds. We have the general fund capital outlay, and the big change here is a reduction in interest. And then we have revenues for the sinking fund, where the change here is again due to the taxable value changes. And as Mr. Saunders mentioned earlier, our larger budget change for the sinking fund has to do with bringing on many of these projects, as well as the increase for the security project. And it's not an increase to the cost of the project, it's in the year that we were expecting to pay for it. So as he mentioned, we were a little behind schedule, which means the budget that we had set for fiscal year 1920 did not get paid out in 1920. And so I need to increase it to compensate for the fact that those invoices are coming in this year. So that's the largest increase along with the other additions. And what that looks like from an equity perspective, putting the two fund balances together, these are the audited totals and the revenues and expenditures, we expect an equity of about 2.5 million. And the breakdown of that is the capital outlay at about 900,000 and close to 1.7 for the sinking fund. Again, we are still reserving that sinking fund to build it up a little bit for our big project of the MSHS parking lot. And that is a summary overview. Are there any questions?
Just an appreciation for making it as entertaining as you can.
Nice job.
Thank you.
So we'll be addressing that amendment later on in the meeting. If there's no other questions for Mrs. Berry, we'll go back to you, Mr. Saunders.
That'll be it for today, Mr. Rossway.
I had one question, Bill, in talking about the pool and I guess just facilities in general, because I've had a few calls and I think all the board members may have, as far as communities access to our facilities. And I understand right now there's no access because of the state of Michigan orders, but if those were to be lifted on the 20th or 21st, is there a plan in place to start making those facilities available again? Or is that, I understand that you've got some bigger fish to fry, you know, from an educational standpoint, but I know a lot of community members that utilize our buildings and are not able to do so right now. Any thoughts on that?
At this point, we've been trying to protect the school environment to the best of our ability. In other words, trying to ensure that we don't have COVID or a COVID breakout or any type of transmission that we can't track that would unnecessarily close us to face-to-face education. So as we go through, again, as you're all aware, K-8's in session right now, but even groups like JJ Packs, we no longer have packaging inside Grave Red Elementary School. We have that happening at our bus garage. We're not renting our gym to men's league basketball and doing some of those types of things, just because those circumstances are outside of our control at the moment. And again, I think there's still quite a fear that we want to control the environment, that we don't want to take any risk with any of the unknown. So I think as we move further into the school year, that definitely those things will hopefully start to open back up again. I mean, as you're aware, they weren't even open to spectators for the most part for the fall. So pretty hard when you can't have community or even parents to a certain degree come watch their kids play, that we also then have community in using our facilities. We haven't been able to use Kauffman Auditorium at this point. We hadn't been able to use the planetarium. So we do have quite a list of things that we would have to check off. One of the other points I should share too, that I didn't share when I gave my quick COVID update and I don't think this, I wasn't sworn to secrecy on last Wednesday. The health department fully believes that educators, is part of the 1B, as far as the vaccination protocols. They believe that educators will start getting doses end of January. So I think as we get a little bit deeper into the winter and start to get through some of that process, those will be times that we start to reevaluate and see where we're at.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Saunders? And if not, we will move on to item number 7, approval of the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Cherry and supported by Mr. Randall. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Linda, roll call vote.
Rich Rossway,
Yes.
James Randall,
Yes.
Kristen Cambenzi,
Yes.
Dr. Brian Cherry,
Yes.
Glenn Sarka,
Yes.
James Hewitt,
Yes.
Michael Kohler,
Yes.
and Rich, we do need to do the first comments from the public. Ally, is there anyone in the waiting room?
Oops, sorry.
Are
And
these
are
for
they agenda
agenda?
items?
Okay. Just have them introduce themselves with their name and we'll be glad to hear what they have to say.
Any follow-up calls or participate in any discussion as you might see fit as that agenda item comes up.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Leah. Any
Thank
luck
you.
on the first public comment, Linda or Elijah? Okay, so I think, do we have a motion and support on the consent agenda? And we just never call the question, correct?
We did go ahead and call the question and we're done with that. It was approved 7-0.
Okay, why, my memory is, it's time to put this guy out to pasture, that's for sure. No comments, Bill, I know. Item 8, unfinished business, board policy, final reading, Mrs. Kambenzi.
We had talked a little bit about this at the previous meeting, and it's to help keep us in line with the current laws. So I don't know if Bill has anything else to say about it. No.
We've been honoring this since that came out. We needed to make that official as far as board policy, but MAPS has been abiding by that over the last about 4 weeks, Deb? 4 to 5 weeks. I think we've honored that as well.
So we need to act on this. We need a motion.
Yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion on that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the through policy 8450.05.
Support.
Moved by Dr. Cherry, supported by Mr. Randall. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question with the roll call vote. Linda?
Rich Rossway,
Yes.
James Randall,
Yes.
Kristen Kambenzi,
Yes.
Dr. Brian Cherry,
Yes.
Glenn Sarka,
Kohler, yes.
James Hewitt,
Yes.
Michael Kohler,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 7-0. Moving on to new business, item 9A, consider adoption of the amendment for the 2021 budget. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the budget as presented.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Hewitt, supported by Mrs. Convenzi. Any discussion, any questions for Mrs. Berry or Mr. Saunders? Hearing none, we'll call the question with a roll call vote. Linda?
Rich Rossway,
Yes.
James Randall,
That was
Was that an approval?
James Randall,
Jamie Randall saying yes.
He's a little hoarse. He's got a little bit of a cough, so.
Sorry about the mute there. Yes.
Kristen Cambenzi,
Yes.
Dr. Brian Cherry,
Yes.
Glenn Sarka,
My cat meowed in the background, so I'm gonna-
James Hewitt,
Yes.
Michael Kohler,
Yes.
That was great. Whoever's dog that was, thank you. Item 9B, consider adoption of our annual summer tax resolution. I think we've got that in our packet as well. This is something that we do every year. I don't know if you want to make any comment on that, Mrs. Berry?
The city of Marquette, we do the summer tax collection. It really helps our cash flow. And because of the timeline that we need to give notifications so they can get tax bills out, we always adopt our summer tax resolution at our December meeting. So normal practice, normal procedure.
I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adopt the annual summer tax resolution.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Kohler, supported by Mr. Sarka. I will be listening for a dog bark when we do the roll call vote once again. So we have the motion to support, so we'll call the question with the roll call vote. Linda?
Rich Rossway,
Yes.
James Randall,
Yes.
Kristen Cambenzi,
Yes.
Dr. Brian Cherry,
Yes.
Glenn Sarka,
Yes.
James Hewitt,
Yes.
Michael Kohler,
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 9C, we have our bid, our competitive bank bids that we do every few years. I know we all received, I think, the tabulation from Mrs. Berry late this afternoon. And you should have that, both the tabulation and some of the items that were filled out. Deb, do you want to discuss that at all in your recommendation?
Sure. We covered a number of different items in our grid to tabulate this. Our bank proposal was last done for the 2015 calendar year, so we're a little late in getting it out this year with everything that's gone on, but we decided that we wanted to do it again just to be fair to community members and banking. We looked at our customer service representative locally, at interest rates and security of the bank based on bank credit ratings, the fees and structure, electronic interface with our software, bid compliance, and recommendations that we've heard from other entities where they have maybe banked and we have not, to determine what best fits Marquette Area Public Schools. We've been with River Valley / Incredible Bank since 2009, I believe, when they first did the bank bid and moved away from where they had been for many years. We're looking at a potential for a pay card option, and I know that Incredible Bank has gone above and beyond in many ways to support us through scholarship writing out cashier checks and working very closely with us whenever we've had any issues come up. So we've been pleased with the customer service. They have the lowest fees. I know
What's a
Leah
sweep
has,
yield?
pardon me?
What's a sweep yield?
The sweep yield is we have a zero balance where we basically hold a lot of our money and the checking account pulls it out. It's probably something we'll look to change because I believe in many cases that was done to protect your investment. So people, if they were able to fraudulently get in there, could pull money out, and it kind of gave that extra account, and it would force you to transfer money in to cover the checking account that you had. We've been running with that. It was a system that was set up a while ago, and I think that Incredible Bank has done a number of things to present some materials that we will look at to change that. So it's not the yield, that's actually a fee for our sweep account to do the transfer.
Okay, I would entertain a motion. We can still have some further discussion, but I think getting a motion on the table would be appropriate.
I'll make a motion to adopt the competitive bank bids.
I think you gotta say which one for sure. Incredible Bank.
It doesn't say that on the agenda. For the Incredible
It's on the
Bank.
proposal. It's on the proposal.
It's on the document that was emailed to us with the recommendation.
Support. Support,
Okay.
even though I find the name goofy, I support.
But tough audience.
A friendly amendment by Mr. Cherry or Dr.
Yeah.
Cherry. So motion by Mr. Randall, support by Dr. Cherry. Any discussion? I just have one. I'm assuming we sent these bids out to all the local banks, Deb. I know there are a few banks that were not included. Did they do a no bid? I guess I just wanted to make sure that everybody was included in this.
We sent out to 6 local banks. I had done a bank credit rating first, and then we looked at all the local banks that had a branch here in Marquette and sent them out. We received 3 bids back, so 3 were no bids.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure with that. Okay, we have a motion and support on the table. We'll call the question with the roll call vote, Linda.
Okay, I do have a motion to award the competitive bid to Incredible Bank. Roll call vote, Rich Rossway,
Yes.
James Randall,
Yes.
Kristen Kembenzi,
Yes.
Dr. Brian Cherry,
Yes.
Glenn Sarka,
Yes.
James Hewitt,
Yes.
Michael Kohler,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously 7-0. Thank you very much. I know we've been serviced quite well with Incredible Bank, and I'm glad to continue that relationship. Moving on to comments from the public general. Do we have anybody that's wishing to speak on anything, Linda? Okay. We're ready for that then. We're at item number 10.
Sedgwick. Can't be Sedgwick. It can't be public comment.
Good evening, Marquette Area Public Schools Board of Education, and thank you for having me tonight. Can everybody hear me okay? Between the lagged feed and the dogs barking, it's a little bit hard to determine exactly where I'm at here. So it looks like everybody can hear me well. So I do want to thank you all for all that you do to support Marquette Area Public Schools in this year, which has been like no other. Particularly Mr. Rossway and Mr. Kohler, as you depart, wish you well. Mr. Kohler, if I could, if you would allow me to focus on Mr. Rossway for just a moment.
We all
I'm
do.
sorry, but your time is up, Mr. Sedgwick. We've had a little quicker time, Matt, here, but we do
So-
appreciate your comments.
Just to put things in context, thinking about 1999, when Mr. Rossway joined the board, population reached 6 billion for the first time. Many folks, especially those in IT, were very concerned for a millennial bug, which they were concerned might cause widespread disruption to our way of life. I know Mr. Rossway is a Packers fan. It was Ray Rhodes' first and only year as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, Brett Favre's first year as starting quarterback. Unfortunately, they did not make the playoffs that year. On a personal note, I was a freshman in college and had a full head of hair and hadn't even taken a class in education, much less started my career in teaching. And that's when Rich joined the board. That's pretty impressive. Want to thank Mr. Kohler and Mr. Rossway both for all your service. There's been a lot of good times, bad times, a lot of accomplishments. You've both received a lot of accolades. And I know although some folks may not always agree with the decisions that you've made, that is quite impressive for that long. I know there's been a lot of sacrifice for your families. For Rich, Rita, Ranger, and Rhonda very willingly gave him up for many, many hours on evenings and other meetings. And of course, all joking aside, have dedicated a lot of time themselves. Well done, both of you. Happy trails. I know a lot of times we don't spend very much time showing appreciation for the folks that are at the top. And I felt it appropriate to get on here and say thank you. And
Thank you, Mr. Sedgwick. I wish you would have
Oh,
put in
thanks,
there
Zach.
that the Lions hadn't won a playoff game well before 1999, the last time they won a playoff game. Just, that might have been nice to put that in there.
well, it just would not seem appropriate for me to say thank you without having a little bit of humor, but the humor, of course, is just to lighten it up a little bit. The sincerity should not be lost. So you both are greatly appreciated and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks, Zach. I do appreciate it. Is there anybody else? I know my, not that this is like a Rossway family thing, but my daughter's been texting me, Elijah, that she's trying to get in the waiting room. It says, please wait, the meeting host will let you in soon. I don't know if she's on the right.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, sweetie. You're
Hi,
on.
Dad. Hi, I love you. I miss you.
I miss you too, sweetie.
I'll see you soon. I'm his daughter, but I also have some questions not directed towards my dad. So I'm a PhD candidate at Northern Illinois University, which means I also get to teach first year composition English for the first and second year students. And now I'm teaching non-traditional first year students this coming semester. So after the last half of the semester and now finally after submitting grades this semester, I'm wondering if your senior and maybe junior even classes, what they're doing to prepare for possibly more remote-based learning or possibly more individual Zoom calls, being more tech savvy. This semester for me was a very, my students and I spent a lot of time individually and taking care of each other. It was a really great semester, but I was wondering if that's a factor in your learning, is the possibility of perpetuating this remote learning, or if that's a factor, just something on my mind.
Bill, can you weigh in on that at all? I don't think John Young is here. Any comment on that?
Yeah, well, I think John spoke to it a little bit. Certainly, coming off last year, we were certainly ill prepared. I think last spring as we approached this phase, and I think a lot of that was evident with the fact that there weren't any mandates to grade student work. There weren't any mandates for students to even attend last spring. So we worked hard throughout the summer to prepare ourselves to bring that into reality. We had actually very little time for teacher professional development. We really had very little time to really get our students up to speed of what virtual learning really was. 99.9% of our students had always been face-to-face. So that was a focus to start this school year, is a lot of even the face-to-face teaching incorporated online or virtual aspects, trying to prepare students in case we were going to go out in a virtual format. And lo and behold, we have. We started with an asynchronous approach, and we've moved more into a synchronous approach. Again, all the data that we see certainly points to higher success rate with the face-to-face learning than it does the virtual. But we know and realize that we have to be prepared to do both this second semester, and certainly until there's enough vaccinations or until things get back to what we might call
the new normal.
New normal, correct.
But
But as far as English goes, and as far as I can't speak to those exact details of what's happening in all our language arts classes.
No, it just, for the record, as someone who teaches intro classes, and who last semester at NIU there was a extended spring break, and then the teachers had to learn how to teach remotely, and now this coming semester. But I've actually seen students be so resilient. My freshman class spending their first year online, it's actually been really amazing. So I hope that's like a little bit of hope. Like my students, I was so sad to see them go. I finished grades this morning and they said, I wish we had met in person, but as like a positive, it's actually been really fulfilling. And my students and I have learned to be like gentle with each other and like understand each other. And so I do think, especially even in the college level, this is my 6th year teaching college. But it is okay. I think sometimes we underestimate the resilience of our incoming students. So as a last thought, I think that we're going to be okay. I really do.
Well, thanks, sweetie. Do you want to say any like really great things about your father or anything while you're on here at all? Or
I know you're baiting me, but I just love you, Dad. I know you want me to say something sarcastic, but I just love you. That's all.
you want to go on a Anchorman kind of a quote battle?
No, too serious. I'm bearing my soul here. But I'm excited to see you. I'm excited to see you for Christmas. I've been quarantined and very healthy since I teach remotely, but I love you, Dad.
I love you too, sweetie. And for the record, Rhonda takes after her mother a great deal. I think that's pretty clear for everybody.
No, I take after Dad in my leadership role, I think. I'm very proud of you, Dad. Okay, I'm going to hang up before I say something more sappy. Okay, love you. Bye.
Love you, sweetie.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other Rossways in the waiting room?
How much did you pay her for that?
A lifetime, okay? Okay, if there's no more comments, we'll move on to gifts and bequests. We have a number of gifts from the Kauffman Foundation, and it's a great time of year, and they do so many wonderful things for us, and I think we all take that for granted sometimes. So they gave $5,200 for our Coach for Kids program. So thank you to Peter and Audrey Kauffman and the entire Kauffman Foundation board. $5,000 in support of the JJ PAC's effort to feed students at MAPS, something that's greatly needed. Donation of $1,000 for landscaping at Graveret and the Kauffman soccer fields. Donation of $2,000 for the purchase of equipment for the Steinway grand piano at Kauffman. And also $5,000 for improvements in the cafeteria courtyard. So a big thank you to Peter and Audrey for their generosity. And also under item E, we did receive a donation from Jamie Galachner from Honor Credit Union, $1,000 to be used to purchase books for the Cherry Creek Elementary School Library. So thank you to them. Moving on to board member comments. We will start with Mr. Sarka.
I have no comments tonight. I apologize for my technical difficulties. I was trying to fix my camera, but apparently I'm just naturally today. So thank you, Rich, for all your hard
I
work.
was thinking I had a stroke there, Glenn.
Thank you for all your hard work. And Mike, thanks for stepping in when we needed you. Very much appreciated by us and the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Mr. Hewitt.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks to the Kauffman Foundation as well for the donations, Honor Credit Union. Thank you to all staff across the district for all their hard work so far this year into 2020. Thanks to Mike and Rich for all your years of service. And I guess similar to Mr. Sedgwick's earlier comments, 99 was my graduating year from high school and my first year in college. So it was, I guess I probably graduated before you actually got onto the board, but
that makes me feel really old.
but it's been a pleasure. So thanks again. Good luck, and we'll see you soon.
Dr. Cherry.
Well, Rich, I hope our Sunday football texts still continue after this. I'm sure I will see you in the neighborhood. We've had some interesting times over the last, I think it's 8 years that we've been doing this off and on for a while. So it's been a while. So I appreciate everything. You've been very supportive, good communication. It's been a good time. Mike, I miss you on the board full time. I appreciate you stepping in. Mike and I always had a good time on the board together, and we started together on the board. Hopefully, when all this calms down, we can all go out and have a few beers together and reminisce over old times. Haven't done enough of that over the last few years. We did that a few times when we were new on the board and would still get together 3 or so of us.
Absolutely.
From time to time.
Maybe we'll do that more.
We just haven't done that lately. So we need to do that more. So hopefully we'll get to do that. But thanks both of you very much. Appreciate.
Thank you, Brian. Mrs. Kimbenzi.
Just echo my fellow board member comments, and thank you, Rich, and thank you, Mike, for everything you did for the board and for the district. Miss you guys.
Thanks, Kristen. I'm going to let Jamie go next, and then I'm going to have Mike go last. Jamie?
Okay, I echo the same. Rich and Mike, it's been a pleasure working with you guys. I'm gonna miss you guys. It's been a good time all around, and I think thanks to John Young for everything that they're doing over at the high school to get things straightened around. And thanks, Deb, for your great report. And thanks to Rhonda for reaching out to find out what we're doing here. I think that was really cool. Anyway, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Mr. Kohler.
I would like to, it seems like this is the second time I've said goodbye to the same board. Probably because it was, I believe. But maybe I shouldn't say goodbye. Maybe I'll get called up again. I don't know. But I want to say it's an honor, and it was very flattering, and it was an honor to be appointed to the board again, and I would offer my services again if needed. I love our administration, our teachers, our staff, and the direction that the district is heading. And I'm going to miss the interaction more so with the board members that we've had. I have a great respect for each one of you as individuals. I know that we're all different and don't always agree on everything, but I think that's what makes it a great board. And so I thank everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Item 13, board president comments. I've got about a 20-minute speech, so if you guys want to all sign off now, that might be a good idea. I'm joking. You know, I really echo to what Mike said. I have so much respect for each board member, and you know, we all know the weight on our shoulders and the things that we've been challenged us for the last several years. And it's really been great to be a part of a team. I know I talked to Deb Barry earlier, and you know what, you know, Bill wrote a very nice thing in the Marquette Mining Journal for me, which I really appreciated. And I've had several people comment on that. And you know what it reminded me of is that, you know, I didn't do any of those things, and none of us individually do anything. It's what the board has done. And I'm really proud of being a member of that team on the board. And that goes not just with our current board members, but, you know, I think about all of our previous board members that we've served with, and, you know, Scott Brogan, Laura Songer, Kelly Holmstrom, you know, Matt Williams, Gene Hetrick. I could list a number of them. And, you know, I think a little part of them is on this board and has contributed to this current board. And hopefully, you know, Mike and I will somehow be a part of this board in the future, and in terms of the work that we've done and building toward consensus. I had an opportunity to meet with our two newly elected board members a few weeks ago, Jen Ray and Jen Clip. And I was really impressed with them, with their willingness to learn and ask questions. And you know, I am comfortable that they will also become good board members. That doesn't happen overnight. I think each of us, when we've been elected, there's been questions about agenda items. I mean, in 1999, I worked for the tribe, and there were people, you know, accusing that I was going to have slot machines in every classroom. I still think that was a viable idea. It never really, you know, never moved forward, but I think each of us have carried that weight of how they're going to predetermine certain things. And that's just never been the case with this board. And so I really look forward to the new board in January, and I put all my support with the current board and the newly elected board members. I think they'll all do a great job. And it's been a great 21 years. And I'm certainly going to continue to harass Bill and Brian as long as the Packers continue to win the NFC North. So final item is item number 14, adjournment. And I think Mr. Kohler, you need to make that motion.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Support.
All right, we'll just do a group one. Motion by Mr. Kohler, supported by Dr. Sherry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thanks, everybody. Remember Tuesday, Monday, the 21st, we have the evaluation with Bill at 2:30, okay?
Merry Christmas.
All right.
And I think that's going to be hopefully in person if we can, but stay tuned for Linda.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
See you
you.
in a week.